Always great to check back in with our friend Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk and NBC Sports. Good to see you, Mike. How are you, sir?
Doing great, Rich. I was listening to everything you said, and
Yes.
It occurred to me that May the 4th be with you. It kind of has a Sylvester the Cat crossover, which dates me and you, because I'm sure you know who Sylvester is. Do kids know who Sylvester the Cat is these days?
I mean, if we went Daffy Duck, that might be a little bit closer.
True.
But any cartoon character with a lisp, you know? I mean, I get it. May the 4th be with you. I understand it and I respect it, but just...
There were a lot of speech impediments in the cartoons of our youth.
Of course.
Elmer Fudd, right?
Yep.
I guess there isn't a lot you can do with a cartoon voice, so let's make it sound funny by giving the character a speech impediment.
It's a Mel Blanc situation, Mike. I'll just go deep into it.
There's only so much Mel Blanc can do.
By the way,
right?
Here in Los Angeles, California, the cemetery in which he and other famous people are buried is, in fact, the site of frequent movies in the park viewings where people go to the cemetery and watch movies at night. I swear to God. And if you pass by Mel Blanc's tombstone, it says, "That's all, folks," on it. I swear to you. That's the truth, Mike. But this is what you talk about on the football on May the 5th. Although here on Cinco de Mayo, it does appear the nation's capital is about to be awarded an NFL draft, Mike. Looks like that's happening.
I got one last point.
Sure.
Is it possible Aaron Rodgers is wearing a wedding ring as a sociological experiment like Costanza once did?
Good question. I don't know. I mean, I'm serious. This was the lead item on an email from the NFL Network today, because we're just waiting, just like everybody else, to see if there's any advancement in his personal life that will cause him to be closer to saying "I do" to the Steelers in his professional life. Mike?
And see, for Rodgers, Rich, I think the sociological experiment wouldn't be, let's see if women are more attracted to me while wearing a wedding ring. It would be, can I get the media to talk about it so I can go on McAfee show at some point in the future and complain about the fact that we're talking about his wedding ring?
When are the Steelers, are you hearing about a drop dead date, Mike, or no? Not at all.
I was told before the draft, and I know that Aaron Rodgers prides himself on no one knowing anything about anything he ever does.
Right.
I was told before the draft by someone in a position to know that Rodgers to the Steelers is happening. It's just a question of when. And it dawned on me last week, Rich, what's coming up on May the 14th? That is the day the schedule gets revealed.
Correct.
And remember last year how Mike North, the VP of Broadcast Planning and Operations, said the Jets owe us one, and they had all those short week primetime games early in the season. If you're Rodgers, don't you just at this point wait until after the schedule is out? Because it's not like the Steelers are going to get fewer primetime games than what they'd otherwise get. But if you drop Rodgers officially onto the Steelers, there's a chance they're going to get more, especially early in the season.
Well, especially when you look at their schedule, Mike, they stroll through the NFC North and the AFC East, both of Rodgers' previous stomping grounds. And speaking of grounds stomping, the road games include a visit to the Jets and famously a spot where he once put on a championship belt with his hands to say that he owned the team in the Bears. There are many, and the Packers are on their list as well, along with the rest of the AFC North. I mean, good Lord, are these games that with the Bills as well, Seahawks? This would be a knockdown dragout for a lot of the league's television partners to say we want the Steelers.
And if it all falls through, it's Mason Rudolph. Have fun with that. Primetime network partners, including NBC, my employer. So I assume they're operating under the assumption that Rodgers is going to join the Steelers. But we know with Rodgers, nothing is official until he goes on McAfee show and tells us it's official. I was told it's happening. Until it happens, who knows what Rodgers is going to do. But at this point, when you look at what the Steelers did or didn't do in the draft, what Art Rooney said during the draft, I think that was the clearest indication yet, the way he characterized, I believe Aaron wants to come here. They didn't draft anybody who's going to compete to play quarterback this year in taking Will Howard. They had multiple shots at Shedeur Sanders. I think the seat is being kept warm for Aaron Rodgers, and they expect him to show up. And there would probably be much consternation at the team facility if they get a text message or a FaceTime one day, because we know the phone doesn't work at his house, telling them, sorry, I've decided not to play for you.
Mike Florio here on the Rich Eisen Show. 9 days now removed from Shedeur Sanders finally hearing his name from the podium in Green Bay. What's your opinion on what happened and your reporting?
Simplest explanations are often the most easy to digest, especially for someone with a relaxed brain like me. At the end of the day, Rich, I spoke to a GM last week. I wrote about this in the aftermath of the conversation. There was a perception that Shedeur Sanders entered the process acting more like he was being recruited than he was being interviewed. And Dion, his father, kind of did the same thing in 1989. Great story about how he met with the Giants. They dropped this giant binder in front of him with this long test in it. And he said, when do you guys pick? They said number 18. He got up and left. He said, I don't have time for this. I'm not going to be on the board when you draft. Dion had once-in-a-lifetime talent. Dion could get away with that. No one was going to be scared away by an attitude that, hey, I'm one of the best players in the draft. I'm one of the best players ever. Pick me or don't. When you're talking about a guy who doesn't have the same skill set as his dad and who plays quarterback, a position where you have to demonstrate a certain amount of commitment and willingness to show up early and stay late and all of that, I can understand how it started and how it became that free fall that went all the way to the Browns at 144. And then, of course, the Browns, who have an obsession with analytics, they're looking at the draft board. They're seeing the gap in their best available players between Shedeur Sanders and everybody else. They put his name on the card. And now the circus comes to town as it relates to having 5 quarterbacks, and we don't know who the starter is going to be. But it does give Shedeur Sanders an opportunity. When you look one by one at the contenders and their circumstances, like Deshaun Watson, highly unlikely to play this year, Shedeur Sanders has a chance to start as soon as week 1.
Mike Florio here on the Rich Eisen Show. What else from the draft hits you 9 days later? I'll just give you the floor on whatever else you're keen on, Mike.
Hey, Rich, we don't pick the stories pick us. And this whole prank call thing, it was like the gift that kept on giving. And all these different guys who got prank called, they got prank called before they were officially picked. There were multiple players who got prank called after they'd been selected and told they were traded. Ashton Jenney of the Raiders recently said that happened to him. He was told he'd been traded to the Cowboys. I know of another player who had that same thing happen. Along the way, I heard about a player who once received a phone call from a friend who was messing with him, telling him he'd been traded. This was years ago. Guy's not in the league anymore. He packed up and went to the airport, and he called his agent on the way. And his agent said, what the hell are you talking about? You haven't been traded. So the lost art of the prank call is now back. And the league's got some work to do by next April, because the gauntlet has been thrown down for anyone out there that wants to go Jerky Boys, Crank Yankers, Bart Simpson, and get these numbers and make these prank calls during the draft next year.
Well, the answer is, Kara Henderson Sneed, a longtime friend of mine. I've known her since my ESPN days, said FaceTime it. That's it. End of story. FaceTime it. Obviously, it might be difficult for a drafted player to hear in his party with, dozens of people around milling about. You might have to somehow put it to your ear, but other than that, you at least get to see who it is and end of the story, because I understand that there is an art of the prank call and everything like that, but it's just at the end of the day, it's just not funny, and it's terrible, and it's something that does need to be addressed. Certainly if, as you pointed out, in one of your posts, how it wound up in the hands of the prank caller, Mike.
Well, and Rich, I got both communications that were sent by the league that really became the heart of this case before we even knew that it was Falcons defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich who had the email somehow opened on his iPad as his son somehow happened to walk by while he was visiting his parents and instantly had this lightning bolt idea. I'm going to write the number down and prank call Shedeur Sanders. But this happened not because the Falcons mishandled confidential information that was given to them by the league. After they sent out the memo with 45 names and numbers on it on Wednesday, April 23rd, there was a supplemental communication that went by email with just Shedeur Sanders' updated phone number, and they sent it to the email distribution list that gets the daily transaction report. My best estimate is 2,000 people get that. And Ulbrich got it directly from the league. He got Shedeur Sanders' updated draft day phone number in an email to him from the league. This wasn't the Falcons mishandling confidential information. This was the league literally putting that number on blast to 2,000 people. So once you do that, you're asking for someone to misuse that number.
And the Falcons just said, we'll still take the fine hit instead of saying we didn't give it to him. I mean, that's interesting.
Well, there still was an element of, look, I've heard from many people about the statement the Falcons put out. Mm-hmm. You can come to your own conclusion as to whether or not it's convenient, as to whether or not it's accurate, mm-hmm. as to whether or not it really tells the whole story. But the quickest way to end this is just take the punishment and move on. Because at the end of the day, one of their employees, one of their key employees on the coaching staff mishandled that information, even if it came to him directly from the league. And I think that it was decided the best thing we can do here is just end this and move on.
Mike Florio here on the Rich Eisen Show. So the next order of business is the May meeting of ownership. And one of the most recent posts on ProFootballTalk.com is about the Tush Push and it being now part of a much larger picture that could potentially get it through to pass. And I'll give you the floor on what you think is going to happen with the Tush Push.
And this all came up during the league meetings when the Packers had a very specific proposal that would have outlawed immediate pushing of the player who receives the snap. Well, that introduces all sorts of potential for inconsistencies. What does immediate mean? Is it a second? How do we measure it? Could you imagine what would have happened if flag gets thrown after a tush push and there's an interpretation by the officials that it was too early and it takes a touchdown off the board in a playoff game? So that was a bad proposal from the get-go. It began to pivot at Palm Beach to this idea of let's just get rid of all pushing. That's the easiest way to do it. We'll get rid of all pushing downfield anywhere. And that is the direction in which the wind is blowing very strongly right now. All pushing is going to be eliminated. And this all started because, frankly, they had a rule on the books against pushing and pulling of a ball carrier in 2006, in part because they recognized they never throw a flag for pushing a ball carrier. In fact, there hasn't been a penalty called for assisting a runner since the 1991 playoffs. They just allowed pushing. And it took 16 years for the Eagles to realize, and kudos to them for figuring it out, let's just build this into our playbook. If you're allowed to push a player, let's push him right out of the gate. So I believe what's going to happen, there'll be at least 24 votes encouraged strongly by the league office to get rid of all pushing. And then two things, Rich. One, we'll see some downfield pushing that isn't called in the future. And two, the Eagles are still going to have a pretty damn effective quarterback sneak that they'll still use. And they'll still get 4th and 1, 4th and 2, 3rd and 2. They basically take 1st and 10 and shrink it down to 1st and 8. That quarterback sneak is largely driven by the push up front, not the push from behind.
Interesting, Mike, because, I mean, if you think about it, the vote, even with the language that you just pointed out, is still so widely open to interpretation that the unintended consequence, which is the way a lot of owners vote on these rules, is like, if we say yes, what's going to happen that we don't intend, and thus extrapolate it out, and thus they might say no because of it. Even with all of that language, it was split right down the middle. So if now you're saying the language is clearer to just remove any pushing or pulling anywhere on the field, you might get enough votes to get this out of the game. And I'm wondering if that is in fact in the cards in a couple of days.
Let's be clear that I'm the one saying this, not you. I don't want to get you in any trouble. I'm used to it. This ties back to the Falcons. Rich McKay has been the chairman of the competition committee forever. And the Falcons in the past have gotten, I'm going to say arguably, but it's not even arguably, they've gotten lenient punishments for various things they've done, including using fake crowd noise for the 2013 season. They lost a 5th-round pick for that. Most people would say that's probably a bigger infraction than a 5th-round pick would suggest, especially because the 49ers not long ago lost a 5th-round pick for an accounting mistake that was determined to have no impact or intent to circumvent the salary cap. Rich McKay is in position, and this is believed by some in the league, and some may be understating it. Rich McKay is in position to push through whatever the league office wants. He's been the chair of that competition committee forever. People have been saying, hey, why don't we rotate that position out? This is a conduit to get the competition committee to get behind what the league wants to do. And even though this proposal came from the Packers, the proposal to change the playoff seating came from the Lions. And then team president Rod Wood blurted out that the league approached them and offered to partner on this. So it looked like a team proposal, but the league wanted it. Bottom line, the league wants this. The commissioner wants this. If you listen to the things he says, it's lurking there, not even all that far between the lines. If he wants it, he's going to get it. There's going to be 24 votes to get rid of all pushing come May 20, May 21, when the owners get together in Minneapolis.
Mike Florio. Well, gee, we're out of time now if you're going to talk like that.
Yeah, we got to go. Got to go. See ya.
Before I let you go,
Bad
Mike.
Connection.
No, what? When it's all said and done, Brock Purdy's number per year starts with a 5, and then
Yes.
What's the next number? Lower or higher than a 5? Not to go Price is Right on you here, but lower or higher than a 5? I laid
out, and I try to find patterns, and I try to take things that have happened and extrapolate what will happen next. The George Kittle contract that was just signed last week, when we got the full numbers, because you know how the game goes. There's there's the big number that comes out and everybody sees it, and then a day or two later you get the real numbers. I think what's going to happen, and this is based on the Kittle contract, I think Purdy's going to have 2 years, fully guaranteed, sizable money, maybe like the Kirk Cousins $90 million over 2 years, which will be a hell of a lot of money for a guy that's made $2.3 million from the 49ers in 3 total seasons of football. But when you see the new money average per year, that's the big number that gets compared to all the others. There are ways to pump that up. There are ways to put some money into the back end years to get him north of 55. I'm thinking it's going to be 55.1, which will put him ahead of everyone but Dak Prescott and Josh Allen. But when you scratch it and look at it, it's probably going to be, and this is just my interpretation based on Kittle's contract, it's going to be a 2-year commitment for a lot of money. Year 3, maybe partially guaranteed, maybe a way to unlock more guarantees for year 3. But, no team other than the Browns, and we saw how that worked out, Rich, no team makes a commitment of more than 3 years, fully guaranteed, to a quarterback on a contract other than the rookie deal. The Dolphins did it with Tua Tagovailoa. Others have done it. Usually it's 2 years. For some teams like the Seahawks, Sam Darnold, Geno Smith, 1 year. Others have 1 year. Matthew Stafford, year at a time. I think it's going to be 2 years, clear and firm, guaranteed from signing with Brock Purdy. And I would guess somewhere between 90 and 100 million. And then after that, it's going to be year to year for the 49ers with some back end years that there'll probably be a new contract before we get to them. But those numbers will make that APY. That'll allow the agent to use the Purdy contract to try to get new clients, because that's the whole ball game. You get that number out there, the tweet mentions the agent, and then the agent is the superstar that hopes the phone starts ringing like, Saul when he does the magic fingers to try to get the phone to ring.
Nice. And you want to call your shot? When does it happen? Training camp, prior to training camp, opening training camp? What do we got? What's your guess?
Let's say before OTAs.
Wow.
I'll go with before OTAs. Because even though he's got the red jersey or whatever color the 49ers wear, because they wear red jerseys, but whenever he's got the don't touch jersey, there's still something could happen. You're out there and you're in the fray and you could have an injury that would completely derail his effort to get paid.
Yes.
I think from his perspective, I'm not taking part in a single snap of OTAs unless I have my new contract.
Mike Florio, greatly appreciated. I just mentioned Price is Right rules. Normally when you say $1, you're trying to win, but you'd be over if you're trying to get copies of Father of Mine and Son of Mine, 99-cent ebook on Amazon. That's out there right now, 99 cents. Mike?
Yes, 99 cents. You can find nothing cheaper than that.
Correct.
You are getting your money's. I can guarantee you for 99 cents, you're getting your money's worth. And I'll tell anyone out there, if you actually buy it and read it and hate it, I will send you the $1. I'll even add in the penny. If you can convince me you've read it. You've got to convince me you've read it. I had somebody say to me once, hey, man, I thanks for sending me your book. I loved it. And I said, what's it about? And the response was, please don't do this to me. So you have to convince me you read it, and I'll send you $1 if you hated it.
Mike Florio, everybody. He personally guarantees it. Great to see you, bud. Thanks for the time.
Thanks, Rich. See you, buddy.
You got it. That's Mike Florio right here on the Rich Eisen Show, ProFootballTalk.com. Check it all out. Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.